Hi, I'm Shannon Cyr, and I am the relationship coach for men. And today we are going to be talking about stonewalling. So there's many predictors that a marriage may be heading for divorce. And often we engage in a lot of these, without even really realizing that we're doing it. And we certainly don't think of the damage that we may be causing in our marriage. Now, you may have heard of John Gottman of the Gottman Institute. And he's really well known for his ability to be able to predict that a marriage will end in divorce. And he studied this extensively. And throughout his studies, he has identified several behaviors that are not only detrimental to our relationships, but also really push them closer to divorce if left unchanged. Four of these are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So today, I'm going to talk about stonewalling and, how we can really pay more attention to it, recognize it, and do something about it. So what is stonewalling? We've all kind of heard it, but maybe you don't exactly know what it is. So it's pretty much what it sounds like. It is metaphorically building a wall between you and your partner. So it can look a lot of ways, but essentially it's turning your back on your partner, either, literally or figuratively. Either way, it's very frustrating to experience. It's very easy to default to, and also very damaging to your relationship. So here's some examples of what it might be. So maybe your partner is trying to talk with you about something that's really important, and you kind of hear it, but not really. And in the middle of them talking, you just kind of get up and walk away. Maybe you shut down and just stop responding and kind of tune out mentally and emotionally. You let them keep speaking and you don't really participate much. You don't really say a word, and they kind of increasingly get frustrated as this happens, right? Or maybe, you just completely disengage altogether and you start doing something else. Like you look at your phone, you watch TV, you leave the room and go work on something else. You may even just get up and leave the house, right? So you can change the subject, and maybe you just don't address their concern. Maybe you just kind of start talking about something else, right? Maybe some of those sound familiar, or, maybe you recognize some of those behaviors in yourself, not just your spouse. Honestly, we have all done this before and had it done to us at some point. But when this happens, it doesn't give you or your partner anything to work with. So whichever one of you is trying to communicate or work through something really has nowhere to go when the other shuts down. So why do we do this? Sometimes we use it because we just don't want to hear it. We don't want to deal with it, whatever it is, right? Whatever they're saying to us, we can't handle it at the moment. And so we figure that if we just kind of block it out or just shut it down or not pay attention, that eventually the other person is just going to leave us alone and go away. They're going to get frustrated and stop talking. Then maybe, you give each other the silent treatment for a day or two. You kind of wait for it to blow over. You think it's going to be forgotten. You won't ever have to deal with it. But really the silent treatment is just another version of stonewalling. Maybe you just don't want to make it worse. Sometimes we don't know what to do with all the information that our partner is giving us, and we don't know what to say. And so when we don't know what to do, our mind is confused, right? And a confused mind will always do nothing. So we just sit there quietly and don't say anything at all. So typically we use stonewalling because we're being flooded emotionally, meaning that, someone is coming at us with a lot of information. Maybe we're arguing and yelling and there's a lot of complaining or questions or demands being put upon us. When all that stuff is coming at us, your mind really kind of goes into fight or flight mode. And flight can be a lot of things. It can just be going into the other room, getting into the car, leaving the house, or even just walking away to go do something else. Sometimes, flight can be walking out on the relationship completely. So these are all ways to escape the situation at the time, but they don't, in fact, solve anything. If anything, they make the space between you larger and the emotional disconnect even wider. Oftentimes, men go into fight and women go into flight, but that isn't always the case. I've worked with many men that go into flight or even do both, really. So there's no exact equation for what one person will do in the situation. And there's many factors that really affect our response. So we know we've all done it, and now we know it isn't helpful and that it creates more problems. So what can we do about it, right? And really the most effective thing we can do is stay present and continue to try to change the interaction that you're having. You want to be able to reach a healthy, emotionally mature place so that you can have a real conversation and find a solution. You don't want to keep rehashing the problem and just trying to figure out who was to blame and pointing the finger. So if you're the one that's doing the stonewalling, you have to be able to really see it in the moment that that's what you're doing. And that's a hard thing to do. There's probably some reason why you're doing it. It might be fear. Maybe you don't know what to do. Maybe you need to think about it. Maybe you need to just take some time because you have a lot on your mind and you really just can't focus on what your partner's saying. And it's completely okay for you to recognize that in the moment and take a step back and just pause. So, explain to your partner that you understand that the issue is really important to them and that you do want to talk about it. It's just that right now isn't a great time for you. You want to be able to be really present for the issue and really give it your time and your attention. And then ask them if you can set up a time to talk about it in the next day or two. But then you have to do it, right? So if you're going to ask to talk about it later, make sure you circle back around and have that conversation. Now, if you're the one being stonewalled, you can become increasingly frustrated and it can happen fast. So typically when this happens, what do, right? We raise our voice and maybe our tone gets a little more harsh. So we get more angry and then we think if we talk louder that the other person is going to listen. They're going to be able to hear us, right? But guess what? They're not hearing us. In fact, it's really the quite opposite. When someone is yelling at us, we feel like we have to protect ourselves. So we go into protection mode and we get ready to defend ourselves. So that means we either put on the emotional armor and defend, or, we build that metaphorical wall so we can stay safe. So when it escalates and we start coming at them harder, they're hearing us less and less because now that's what they're doing. They're in protection mode, right? They're trying to stay safe. So if you're being stonewalled, stepping away is your only answer because escalating it and yelling and flying off the handle just isn't helpful. It's just destructive. So it causes more issues. It makes both of you feel bad. So you have to step away. That doesn't mean you walk out and say nothing because that would be stonewalling. You just clearly state that it appears to not be a good time, but that you still want to talk about it when they're ready. And you tell your partner that you'd like to set up a time in a day or two when it might be better, when they're able to really engage with you and have a conversation. Now, every relationship is going to have issues that need to be addressed and things that need to be discussed. But how we navigate those issues can be the marker for whether or not the marriage can be fixed and feel better, or if you're headed towards divorce. Stonewalling, shutting down, completely disengaging, disconnecting, ignoring your partner, it's not going to be helpful. So hopefully these ideas just give you another option and something to think about the next time you experience this. The first way to really make change is to be able to be aware of what needs to change. So you're already well on your way. If you'd like to find out other ways to engage with your partner and create connection as opposed to distance, I invite you to schedule a complimentary exploratory session with me. Let's see if we're a good fit to work together and get you started on the path to creating a better relationship. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you like what you hear, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. I come out with new content every week. All my best.